Well, you do know the 2016 election is heating up, and it's at the top of the minds of every person across this nation. You got to ask the question, what happens when heated discussions take over the workplace? Political discussions. Well, we want to make sure that you stay employed through this year and after November. And here to share a little bit of the tips that you need to have so that you don't lose your job over politics is noted speaker, author of Employed for Life, 21st Century Career Trends, Dr. Tracey Wilen. We welcome you back to the show, and good to have you.
Thank you.
So, you know, yesterday was another Super Tuesday, and you've got debates, and we're going to work, and somebody's going to say something, and it's amazing to know how many people actually lose their job over politics.
Oh, I know, and it's top of mind this year. It's a very different election. People are talking about it in taxi cabs, restaurants, and at work. And, you know, I recommend, first of all, if don't initiate the conversation. There is a golden rule at work about not talking about sex, politics, or religion. But it does happen, and I think people should think about how to maneuver if they get into a difficult situation.
People do find themselves in a difficult situation. They don't find it to be a difficult situation because we're just talking. But talking can lead to arguing, can lead to debating, can lead to a trip to the boss's office, can lead to you taking your boxes out. What are some of the golden rules that you have? Especially, let's talk about politics, because we know this is happening.
Well, you know, I would recommend that if you are put in a situation where someone is pressing you about the election and you're uncomfortable with it, let them talk. Ask them to tell you why they have a certain candidate in mind. And I'll tell you, people are very passionate this year. They're very energized, and they may just talk forever and forget that they even asked you if you had an opinion. I believe in active listening. Just keep prompting the person. If you feel heated, just remember it's someone who's very, you know, we're very diverse here in the United States. We all come from different backgrounds. We all listen and watch different news stations and radio stations. And it would be interesting to find out how people develop their opinions.
So you do say listen to somebody else's perspective. That's real key.
That's right. In fact, you don't even have to respond. You can just nod and actively listen until they just burn themselves out.
And hopefully they will burn themselves out. Talk to us about this, because taking a position can certainly be one that really is not a good thing.
Right. So let's say you're a Democrat in a Republican state or a Republican in a Democratic state. You might feel outnumbered and uncomfortable with stating your position. A lot of people will just remain neutral, because actually a lot of people have not truly decided. Say that you're an independent and that you're still evaluating all of the viewpoints, all of the policies, and all the perspectives. And people may just let that go and then continue to talk about their candidate and why they think you should look at them.
Yeah, you know, getting that conversation out, you know, having the conversation, but then there's something about being skillful enough to try to get it back to something that's neutral. What are some of the things that I do if I don't want to hear anymore about this guy? I want to talk about something else. What do I do about trying to divert that?
Talk about work. You're at work, and I recommend just go to the primary on Tuesday. We have a project due on Wednesday. By the way, where are you at with our project? You know, so I would go back.
That's so easy.
Right, go back to work, or talk about things that you used to talk about before the election in the campaigns. Talk about your kids. Talk about sports, if that's not too heated. Talk about hobbies, right? Talk about weather. Okay, the weather hasn't been great. Talk about the weather.
Right.
You know, talk about the things that you used to talk about before the campaign started.
And really, we're making light of this, but this is a very serious situation.
Oh, it is.
And I mean, it's not just politics. What are some of the other conversations that are really, try to stay away from them at work?
I would stay away from religion. I would stay away from sex, politics, anything. Family can be very, very controversial for people. Even some of the news stories. You know, immigration. There's a lot of hot buttons out there that people are responding to, and so I think if you can just keep it neutral. Here's what I do. When someone pushes me, I say, isn't it exciting that we live in America? Isn't it exciting that all of us have this opportunity to vote? Isn't this exciting that this is the year that the most students have come out and gotten engaged? That's why I like living in America. And it just moves the direction of the conversation to something much more positive, because people usually sit back and go, yeah, this is the country we can have these kinds of conversations in.
So I guess you should practice a few lines that you should have just in case this thing rises up.
Yes, and if all else fails, I guess you could use a little body language, yawn or excuse yourself. But, I think it's something that people are just excited about this year. And you just remind them that this is an exciting time for us all.
Is it a little bit more different this year as compared to other presidential elections? I think, everybody's talking about somebody.
Yes, but actually, if you look back a few years ago, it was the same thing. It's just this year, there's just, a lot of news about it. I think this election, quite honestly, has been a lot more transparent. And so people have learned more about the electoral process, caucuses, behind the scenes. There's been a lot more shows, really showing some visibility. So it's actually giving people more to talk about. And I think that's what's exciting, because people actually are learning while they're talking about it.
What are some of the ramifications? We talked about the worst ramifications, of course, being fired. But what are some of the ramifications inside the employment place when stuff like this goes on and it goes awry?
Yeah, so here's a couple of recommendations for someone who are supervisors, managers, and I even say professors, because I've been a professor myself. You are in an influential position, right? So you might have employees who will get nervous, right, about being subject to, discriminations somewhat for their viewpoint. You could be actually creating a hostile environment, right? And so there are laws against that, right, that could be really distracting someone from being productive at work. So I would caution anyone in a supervisor role or manager role from, have a conversation, but don't make someone feel like it's a hostile environment if they don't agree with you.
So, if it's a hostile environment, of course we want to make sure that the environment is right. Don't change don't allow the environment to grow to become hostile. So basically change the way that you talk, change the conversation, and see how things go. As far as people speaking, things that are not considered offensive, I thought it wasn't offensive, but people do find certain things offensive. What are some of the common things that people think aren't offensive, but they are?
Well, I think just talking about the news and the headlines, making fun of candidates. You can see people, I have been put on the spot many times about different anchors, about different candidates. And
Speak well about me now. I'm trying to do the best I can.
What they wear, or what they said, or how they changed their viewpoints, or past history, or what they read in the New York Post, right? I mean, and some people are very dedicated to their candidate. They're very dedicated to the issues. Another one that's very controversial is gun control. A lot of people have different viewpoints on that and come from different backgrounds about it. So I think education always draws a lot of passion, right? Should it be supported? Should it be free? Should it not be free? So I think people just have to be careful, throw it out there, test the waters. And also someone will tell you pretty quickly what candidate they're vying, they're interested in. And then if you're keeping up with the news, you will sort of know the direction that they're interested in. And if they're not in the same alignment with yourself, then just be prepared to ask more active questions.
Dr. Tracey Wilen is our guest here, and before we go, tell us a little bit about yourself. People don't know who Dr. Tracey Wilen is.
Oh, sure. So thank you very much. I'm based actually in Silicon Valley in California, and I am a corporate speaker and researcher, and I've done some research at Stanford University, and I look at really how technology changes the landscape of society, work, careers, gender, and education. And I really appreciate being invited on your show to talk about careers.
Well, we certainly enjoy having you. You got to come back and see us before you leave.
I will. Thank you.
Dr. Tracey Wilen, our guest here in studio.